9:15 here on a Monday morning on the morning show with Jeff and Will, AM 1700 WRCR Haverstraw, WRCR.com. Joining us now, as she always does at this time on a Monday morning, Tina Traster from RCBizJournal.com. Welcome, Tina.
Good morning, everybody. What a weekend, huh?
Indeed.
Rockland burning, and goodness gracious, what a weekend. But here we are on Monday, and I am going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about warehouse fever in the county and what it means and what's news. And I'm going to try to save some time also to talk about rent control that's being proposed and thought about in the village of Nyack. So, excuse me. Oh, and I also wanted to just remind everybody that on May 2nd at 8:30 in the morning, I'm doing a Meet the Editor, Coffee with the Editor, at Roasted, which is a coffee shop in Nanuet at the Shops of Nanuet. And I will keep letting people know about that. I hope some people will come out and we'll chat and have a good time. So last week, there is a massive warehouse that is being proposed in the village of West Haverstraw. And landowner, developer Eric Bergstall plans to build a 454,000 square foot distribution center on Beach Road. Now, just to give you a visual, okay, 454,000 square feet is 8 football fields put together. So it's big. It's really big. And this site is very close to, actually abutting even, Peck's Pond Park, Rockland Green's Joint Regional Sewage Authority, and also literally right across a very skinny street, Ecology Lane, from a proposed warehouse conversion for a possible county-wide animal shelter. The project, the developer came to the village of West Haverstraw last week and told both the zoning and planning boards that it intends to submit a scale model of the project and also the DEC remedial recommendations in May, so just next month. And the key thing here is that this is a massive site. It's a 30-acre site that is a former construction landfill, and so it needs proper environmental cleanup and capping of the former construction landfill, and therefore it requires the upfront involvement of DEC. So this project is in fact moving forward, and from what we understand, it will be some sort of a truck distribution center, which, if you can picture the site, this is sort of, I guess, it's let's just say it's away from the main arteries in terms of highways. So the truck traffic that this project will bring will definitely impact 9W snaking through Haverstraw and West Haverstraw, and then through these local roads. I can tell you that at this meeting last week, no questions were raised at this point regarding the issues that are likely to come to the fore, which include certainly traffic and noise and pollution and all the issues that involve the building of such a massive warehouse, especially so far off, away from a main artery. This warehouse, we're seeing, a continuation of warehouse fever throughout the county. We know that there are projects that are down in Orangetown that are up for consideration, that are create, and we wrote about that recently, that are worrisome to neighbors and to people who are concerned about the 303 corridor. Similarly, there was the Lincoln Equities project that brought out a lot of opposition in the town of Clarkstown, also right off 303, that project is moving forward. That's a 225,000 square foot warehouse. We know up in Suffern, up on the former Novartis site, we know that I think there's over a million square feet there. This, funny enough, was not even the only warehouse project that was on the agenda that night. There was also another proposal that was put forward for a 15,000 square foot warehouse that would be divided into, the way I think it was described was sort of 8 sections, and it would house tradesmen. So, you know, Rockland County is, I guess it's very ripe for warehouse development. There, you know, in the case of this particular 450,000 square foot warehouse that we're talking about, you know, I guess the good news here is that you've got a 32-acre former construction landfill that would have a lot of, you know, environmental issues, and the idea, I suppose, of capping that landfill with something is certainly a good thing. But we're going to watch how this project wends its way, you know, through the approvals process, and I guess also what it will ultimately mean from being situated right smack across from where the proposed Rockland Green is proposing its 15,000 square foot animal shelter, also in a warehouse that they want to convert. So, you know, this development cumulatively, I think, is the point, matters. You know, we see, just to reference the fires from the weekend, you know, we do see how fragile the environment can be, and you know what it means for industry and residential and commercial to all coexist side by side, and you know the climate conditions. Because for one thing about this site is that it's also in a flood zone. So a lot of considerations. This is going to be an application that we will watch very closely, and we will see where all of this goes and how this plays out.
Well, we will indeed have to see. I mean, I'm sure it's going to. A lot of people are going to be very passionate, especially when you bring up the point about the shelter. I'm sure that's going to grab a lot of people's attention if it hasn't already, and we'll see how the public reacts to that as well. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely a significant issue. I mean, as it is, putting the shelter in that location has numerous problems. But when you add to that a warehouse that's the size of 9 football fields or 8 football fields right across the street, and you consider the 24/7 truck traffic and noise and air pollution, etc., yes, it certainly is something that we're going to have to watch in context with other things. And also its proximity to Peck's Park, which is a lovely park. So that is all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Calming serene as we talk about some potential dangers there. In other news, though, I believe you had a story about rent control. I'm interested to hear what that's in the
Yeah. So this is pretty interesting. So under the New York Emergency Tenant Protection Act and Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, Nyack is looking at potentially well, they're at the very early stage, but passing a law that would have rent control, government imposed rent control in buildings and all of this is fluid right now, but 6 or more units that were built before 1974. The village has, this actually surprised me, it has 33 buildings, or a total of 734 units that could potentially be impacted if a rent control law was adopted. The first thing that they must do is they must conduct what's called an emergency study. And that emergency study has to show that actually it's called a vacancy study. that has to show that there's less than 5% vacancy. And that's the first step that they are going to take to assess whether there is a squeeze on vacancy in the village. What the mayor, Don Hammond, told us is that what is clear is that rents have more than doubled all over the place, that they're just skyrocketing, spiraling costs in the village's rental buildings, and that this creates just another layer of housing difficulties in a village that is quickly changing, and in the whole county at large. On April 21st, the county is actually holding its first affordable housing forum to look at affordable housing. But the village of Nyack is drilling down on its own territory now and doing something concrete and specific to try to address the affordability issue. As we know, there have been a whole new crop of condos, and apartment buildings that have gone up, and none of these would be affected, of course, because this pertains only to buildings that were built before 1974. But the point is how do you maintain some sort of a balance, in a village, so that people are not squeezed out. And so last week the village board moved forward to start to conduct this vacancy study and to look at its housing situation and to see whether or not they will qualify, whether or not they're in the zone. So that's interesting, I think.
Do you think they'll be able to pass it through, specifically the rent control in that specific village? Do you believe that I'm interested that the local government seems pretty enthusiastic about implementing that? Do you think it's possible that how optimistic are you that will go, or how much do you think, percentage-wise perhaps, that will be implemented in the near future?
Well, I think that rent control is a hot potato. I think that it's probably not something that will be very popular with landlords. I think that if the village finds that they really do have the need, that they might tailor this away from, let's say, buildings of only 6 units, and maybe attach the law to buildings that, let's say, have 12 units or more. So I think that this is the very first step of a long process, and then I would say that it would take political backbone to make it happen. It's happened in Kingston, which is a city and bigger, but similar, I would say, in that Kingston has a big range, a big socioeconomic range of people living within its borders, and I'd say it's the same for Nyack.
Do you think if it were implemented, one last question, do you think if it were implemented that would increase tenant traffic to the village?
Tenant traffic, meaning?
As in like people looking for places to rent, knowing that there is rent control within the village. Do you think that would increase people's...
I think what it would do in the short term is, and if people check out the story, they'll see that people are being squeezed out and even evicted. I think at least what it would do in the short term is it would stem that bleed for people who are unable to remain in their apartments.
Right, people who are already there. That certainly makes sense. Hey, Tina, thank you so much for joining us.